I want to start off by talking about action that you took that was very commendable. You eliminated the majority of assignment restrictions, and on a going forward basis, you are eliminating all of them. So I just want to say thank you for trusting State Department employees, and thank you for taking that courageous action, and thank you for your leadership. I'd like to now ask some questions about Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in February 2022. And you were one of the folks that, in my view, made a decision to win. You went out there and tried to get air power to Ukraine. You were fighting to get fighter jets to Ukraine. As we saw things play out, unfortunately, the Pentagon appeared to have opposed that. Turned out you were right, because now the Pentagon is, guess what, getting air power to Ukraine. What I'd like to know is, does, in your view, the Pentagon and the National Security Council support Ukraine pushing Russia back to pre-invasion lines of 2022? Do they support that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the challenge is this, and it goes with every weapon system that's come up over the last 2 years. It's not sufficient to provide an F-16 or an Abrams tank. We also have to make sure that the Ukrainians have the training they need to operate them. We also need to make sure they have the ability to maintain them. So I think when the Pentagon is looking at these things, it wants to make sure that we can do it in a comprehensive way. So, for example, F-16s, yes, I very much support that, and have supported that. But there also have to be pilots to fly them. So we've engaged in a training program with other countries to make sure that the pilots were there. I say that only because I think it's we can't look at these decisions just solely through the prism of, do we provide a tank, do we provide a plane, do we provide a particular weapon? We need to know that they can be used with the proper training and maintained.
I totally agree with you. It's just that had the Pentagon started earlier, it would have been far better. And by the way, the Pentagon actually didn't quite say that. They actually said F-16s were unnecessary. I think they realized that they were just wrong on that. Now, in terms of not allowing Ukraine to strike Russia with U.S. weapons, I've heard what other people have asked. I'm not going to ask you to restate what you've already said. I listened very carefully to what you said. What I'm trying to understand is, in the mix of weapons, because the United Kingdom has clearly said Ukraine could use UK weapons to strike inside of Russia. How much of these weapons are U.S. and how much are supplied by other countries? Is there a general percentage?
I think it really depends on the category of weapons. So you'd have to distinguish between munitions, between missiles, between tanks, between armored vehicles. I can get you a breakdown, but it varies according to the category.
Thank you. Are you convenient if you could do that? And I just urge you personally to get the Pentagon and SC to do what you did, which is to make the decision to win. Now, I'd like to ask something about an action completely within the State Department's control, and just trying to understand the reasons why it hasn't happened yet. Russia has supported terrorist groups, and I believe when we looked at it, they meet the technical definition of a state sponsor of terrorism. What is their policy reason or reasons for why that designation has not happened yet?
So I think there are a few things. First, of course, we have unprecedented and a variety of sanctions, export controls, you name it, on Russia. War crimes, atrocities, and I think that frame that they're committing war crimes and atrocities is the most accurate one, and using the authorities that we have in those areas we think is most appropriate. Aggression is not terrorism. These are distinct things. Second, the concern, I think, with the SST designation, besides we don't think it actually fits what Russia is doing, is it does run the risk of undercutting some of the multilateral cooperation and coordination we've had on sanctions. It would be extremely difficult to reverse if we ever got to the place where there were peace negotiations and that was something that you wanted to put in play in order to get over the goal line. But the other real problem is it could interfere with the efforts that we're making, very vigorous efforts we're getting, to make sure that Russia pays for the terrible damage it's done in Ukraine, including the use of its sovereign assets, because those could be tied up in litigation if we have a state-sponsored terrorism designation. So there are a number of practical reasons why, again, we don't think it's the best way to go forward. We think we have the necessary authorities. We're using them. They're more accurate in terms of describing what Russia is doing, and we don't want to have unintended consequences, second or third order effects that could actually make things more complicated in achieving what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Florida, Mrs. Salazar, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Wonderful to have you here. You know, I just